"Don't move a damn inch. That dog will tear you apart." The shout slammed through the penthouse like a gunshot. It came from Enzo Dante himself. Billionaire, kingmaker, and the kind of man whose anger could freeze a room solid. But his warning came too late. Because the Pitbull was already airborne, Maya Williams didn't even have time to scream. One moment she was stepping over a fallen to-go bag. The next 100 pounds of muscle and rage was charging straight at her, jaws wide enough to crack bone. Instinct, pure, terrified, street-honed instinct took over. She grabbed the nearest thing she could, the heavy steel serving tray that had clattered to the floor seconds earlier. As the dog lunged, Maya twisted her body, shoved her shoulder forward, and dropped her weight hard, redirecting the beast's momentum the way her uncle had taught her years ago. The Pitbull hit the ground with a painful yelp, skidding across the marble and slamming into the base of a glass display case. Everything stopped. The guards reached for their weapons. Maya stumbled back, shaking violently, breath breaking in her throat. I didn't mean he came at me, I just reacted." But Enzo wasn't listening. His face went from shock to murderous fury in seconds. "You stupid little girl," he snarled. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" "I wasn't trying to hurt him," Maya pleaded, holding up trembling hands. "He jumped, You put your filthy hands on my dog." Enzo took 2 long strides toward her, his voice dripping venom. "You people never follow instructions. Eddie Evere." Maya stiffened at "you people," but fear kept her rooted in place. "He attacked me," she whispered. Enzo grabbed her shoulder and shoved her backward, hard. She hit the floor on her palms, pain shooting up her wrists. "Don't you dare come into my home," Enzo hissed, "and make excuses for injuring the only creature here worth a damn." Behind him, the Pitbull staggered upright, shaking his massive head. A low, furious growl rumbled through his chest as he saw Maya on the ground. One of the guards shouted, "Sir, he's locking on her. Should we?" But the dog was already sprinting. Maya's lungs froze. There was no tray to grab, no time to roll away. Her back hit the base of the sofa, trapping her. She threw her arms up to shield her face just as the Pitbull leapt, and then she heard the sound. Not the growl, not the heavy paws cracking against marble. Something else, something deeper, something impossible. A tiny, broken whine. The Pitbull came down on top of her, but not with teeth. His massive body trembled, muscles quivering, breath shuddering against her cheek. Those wild, furious eyes hovered inches from hers, and in them she saw something she hadn't seen in 7 long, aching years. Recognition. "Oh my God," she whispered. "King?" The dog let out another strangled, desperate whine. The guards froze mid-draw. Even Enzo seemed to glitch, unable to process what he was seeing. Maya, shaking uncontrollably, lifted one hand, not to block, not to fight, to reach. The dog flinched but didn't attack. Her voice cracked. "It's really you." She didn't think, she only remembered. Her grandmother's voice. The creaking porch in Louisiana. A puppy hiding beneath her bed during summer storms. So Maya did the only thing her heart knew how to do. She sang. A soft Creole lullaby slipped from her trembling lips, fragile and quivering like a memory being pulled from a locked trunk. "Dormi, Ticheri, Maman la." The entire room went silent. Cerberus King froze completely. His ears lifted. His body sagged. The deep growl died in his throat like someone had blown out a candle. Then, in a moment that made one of the guards gasp, the huge Pitbull lowered himself onto Maya's lap gently, fearfully, like he was afraid she might disappear if he moved too fast. He pressed his head against her chest and whined. Not a threat, a plea. My God," one guard whispered. "That's impossible." Enzo's expression shattered into something brutal and disbelieving. He took a step forward, then another. Eyes narrowed, mouth parted in shock. "Explain," he demanded. It wasn't a question, it was a command carved from stone. Maya didn't look up. Her hand stayed on the dog's scarred head, fingers shaking as they moved through the short fur she'd memorized as a child. 7 years ago, she said, voice trembling. "Someone stole my puppy. From our backyard. While I was at my father's funeral." Cerberus whimpered at the sound of her voice, burying his face deeper into her shirt. "I never found him," she whispered, police said to let it go, but he had a white patch on his chest, shaped like a crooked heart, and a soft spot behind the ear right here. The dog's hind leg twitched just like it had when he was a baby, and he loved this lullaby. It was the only thing that calmed him. Maya's throat tightened. His name was King. He was my best friend. Enzo stared at the dog with a gaze sharp enough to cut glass. Cerberus came from a certified breeder, he said stiffly. Maya finally met his eyes. Or from someone who stole him, she said softly, and sold him to people who never cared who he really belonged to. The dog shifted, placing his head in her lap fully, eyes closed, his entire body melting into the safety he remembered. It was the most vulnerable thing she had ever seen, and the most damning. Enzo's jaw was rigid, his hands curled into fists. The world's most untouchable billionaire looked, for one impossible moment, completely unmoored. Maya stroked King's head and whispered, "It's me, baby." I never stopped looking. Cerberus exhaled a long, breaking sigh. Enzo Dante, a man who had faced assassins and warlords without blinking, looked at Maya Williams with something between fury and something dangerously close to fear. Her life had just changed. His had, too, and neither of them knew yet which one should be more terrified. If this moment hit you too, like and comment where you're watching from. You might not be the only one in your city feeling this. The silence was deafening. Cerberus lay still in Maya's lap, his enormous body rising and falling in slow, shallow breaths. The tension that had filled the room like gasoline moments before now simmered beneath the surface, thick and volatile. No one spoke. No one moved. Maya didn't dare. Her hand stayed gently on the dog's head, fingers absently stroking behind his ear right where the soft spot had always been. Even as a pup, she could feel his heartbeat slowing beneath her touch, syncing with her own in some strange, aching rhythm of familiarity and loss. Across the room, Enzo Dante still hadn't holstered his gun. He stared at her like she was something that had crawled out of a forgotten past, something inconvenient and dangerous, and far too real for the polished life he'd built. "You're sure it's him?" he finally asked, voice flat, emotionless. Maya looked up slowly, her cheeks damp but her gaze steady. "You heard him. You saw how he responded. That dog remembers me." "That dog," Enzo said sharply, "has been through more than you could imagine. He's not your pet. He's a weapon." Maya flinched, not from fear, from grief. "No," she said quietly. "He was turned into one." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire long buried. Enzo's eyes narrowed. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then answered with calm pride. "Maya Williams. And who the hell told you to touch anything in my house, Miss Williams?" "No one," she admitted. "I just wanted to deliver your food." A guard cleared his throat. "She's with Eastway Catering, sir." Background checked. Registered. Enzo didn't look away from her. "I didn't ask for her resume." Maya drew in a breath, grounding herself against the storm behind his eyes. "Look, I didn't come here looking for trouble. I didn't even know where I was delivering to. But the second I saw him, Cerberus, King, whatever you call him, I knew. I knew it was him." The dog let out a sleepy sigh, one paw twitching in his dreams. Enzo slowly lowered the gun, but didn't put it away. "So what exactly are you asking for? A reward? A pat on the head? You want me to say thank you for knocking over my dog and nearly causing a bloodbath?" Maya stood, gently sliding Cerberus off her lap. He settled at her feet like a well-trained soldier waiting for his command. "I want what's fair. He was stolen from me. If you bought him from someone who didn't have the right, that's not your fault. But it's not mine either." Enzo's jaw ticked. "Let me guess," he said with icy sarcasm. "You're going to sue?" Maya chuckled, bitter and low. "Right. Because a waitress from Queens is going to take Enzo Dante to court and win." That seemed to amuse him, however, slightly. "Then what, Miss Williams? What exactly is your game?" "No game," she replied. "I just want to be with him. I want to make sure he's safe, that he's not being used." Enzo's stare sharpened. "He's not a toy. He's security. He's saved my life. You don't get to waltz in and pretend the last 7 years didn't happen." "I'm not pretending," Maya snapped, then caught herself. She lowered her voice. I'm not here to erase your history with him. I'm here to reclaim mine. The room grew still again. Enzo looked at her for a long moment, then turned to one of his men. Call Dr. Levon. Have him check the dog's microchip. Verify his ID. Already on it, the guard replied, stepping out. Enzo looked back at her. Until then, you don't leave. Maya blinked. Excuse me? You want to be with him? He said, gesturing at the dog. Fine. You stay here. You feed him, walk him, train him. If he reacts to you the way you say, you'll prove it. If not, he didn't finish the sentence. Maya crossed her arms. You want me to just stay, like a guest? Enzo's mouth curved into something that was not quite a smile. Not a guest. A handler. I'll pay. How much? 50,000 a month. Maya almost laughed. Make it 100. And I get a proper room, not a closet. Enzo arched an eyebrow. You drive a hard bargain. I've been poor my whole life, Mr. Dante. I know what my heart is worth. He studied her, cold calculation flickering behind his eyes. Then, at last, he nodded. Fine, 1 week. If Cerberus stays calm, eats, trains, and doesn't try to murder my staff because of you, we renegotiate. Maya nodded slowly. Deal. Enzo turned away, finally sliding the gun back into its holster. Someone get her settled. Give her the east wing. A guard moved toward her. But Enzo paused at the archway and glanced back. You hit my dog, he said coldly. I haven't forgotten that. Maya lifted her chin. He was going to kill me, and you still think you belong here? She didn't blink. I know I do. Cerberus whined softly at her side, nudging her hand with his nose. Enzo watched them for 1 second longer. Then he disappeared down the hall. Maya stood there, heart pounding, knees weak. She looked down at King Cerberus and whispered, We've got 1 week, baby. Let's make it count. The dog licked her palm, and for the first time in years, Maya felt like she'd finally come home. Maya barely slept that night. Though the room she was given was technically called the East Wing Guest Suite, it was bigger than her entire apartment in Queens. Velvet drapes, mahogany furniture, a bathroom with gold fixtures and towels fluffier than anything she'd ever owned. But all the luxury in the world couldn't settle the storm in her chest. King Cerberus had curled up at the foot of her bed like he'd done when he was a puppy. He snored softly now, his breathing deep and steady. But every time Maya's eyes fluttered shut, her mind replayed the moment he lunged at her in the foyer. The flash of his teeth, the weight of his body slamming into the marble, and Enzo's voice cutting, cruel. You people never follow instructions. The insult echoed louder than the threat. At dawn, she gave up on sleep. She found a robe, tiptoed around the sleeping Pitbull, and stepped onto the terrace overlooking Manhattan. The wind was crisp, the skyline already buzzing with morning energy. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd walked into something much larger and more dangerous than she was prepared for. By the time she made her way to the kitchen, the staff were already moving like clockwork. Uniformed assistants, a private chef in all white, a woman with a clipboard giving orders in rapid Spanish. They all stared when Maya walked in. No one said anything, not directly, but the looks lingered, curious, cautious, quietly disapproving. A black woman in slippers and a silk robe didn't exactly blend in here. She grabbed some fruit and took it back upstairs. Cerberus was awake now, tail thumping lightly when she entered. She smiled, crouched, and fed him apple slices from her hand. Still got that sweet tooth, huh? She whispered. He licked her fingers and nudged her shoulder. That old gentleness, it was still in there, buried under training and trauma, but not gone. You remember me. I know you do. A knock on the door pulled her attention away. Marco, Enzo's personal assistant, stood there in a slate gray suit and a face that didn't quite hide his judgment. Mr. Dante is expecting you in the study, he said. Now. Maya rose, smoothing her hair and spine. Lead the way. The study was 2 floors down, past a hallway of oil paintings that looked like they belonged in a museum. She was ushered into a dark-paneled room that smelled of leather and scotch. Enzo sat behind a massive desk, reading something on a tablet. He didn't look up. Sit. She sat. He finally spoke without looking at her. Cerberus was implanted with a microchip 2 years ago. It confirms he came from a trainer named Gavron Marchetti. That's where I bought him. Maya's stomach sank. So, he's not mine? Enzo finally looked up. Gavron's known for sourcing his dogs from questionable origins. No birth records, no ownership papers, just results. Maya's jaw clenched. So you're saying he could have been stolen? I'm saying it's likely, Enzo replied. Which puts us in a legal gray zone. Maya folded her arms. So what happens now? He leaned back, eyes sharp. Now, you earn your stay. You keep him stable. I've got a meeting in 2 hours with the head of Valtrex Security. Cerberus will be present. If he behaves, you stay. If not, you both leave. Leave as in? Out the door, Enzo said. No payout, no room, no goodbye. Maya looked at him, unflinching. Then I guess I better do my job. His eyes glittered with something unreadable. You've got nerve. I've got history, she said. With that dog. That's more than anything your money bought. Enzo stood, towering, imposing. You think this is about sentiment? I don't run a sanctuary. Cerberus is a weapon. No, Maya said softly. He was your weapon. He was my family. We do those. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Enzo gestured to the door. You have 90 minutes. Make sure he doesn't kill anyone. She rose, gave him a curt nod, and walked out without waiting for permission. Cerberus was waiting patiently at the elevator. She clipped on the leash, but let him walk beside her freely. He didn't pull, didn't growl, just walked like he belonged next to her, and maybe, in some strange way, he did. The meeting room was sterile and cold. A massive oval table, men in suits, thick folders, digital blueprints glowing on a screen. Maya stood in the corner with Cerberus sitting at attention beside her. The men eyed the dog warily, especially when he yawned and showed his teeth. But he didn't lunge, didn't snarl. He watched. Quiet. Loyal. Maya whispered to him between breaths. You're okay. I've got you. An hour passed. 2. And not once did Cerberus misbehave. When the men filed out, shaking hands and smiling, Enzo turned to Maya for the first time since the meeting began. He didn't move once, he said. He knows who he is, Maya replied. You just forgot. Enzo watched her a long moment. Fine. You stay. Maya exhaled. But you answer to me, he added. She met his gaze, unyielding. I'll answer to the dog first. Enzo smirked faintly. God help us all. That night, Maya returned to her suite with Cerberus at her side. She looked at him as he curled up again near the window, watching the city lights blink in the distance. We made it through day 1, she whispered. The dog thumped his tail. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The next morning, the house was quiet, as if even the walls were holding their breath. Maya rose before the sun, muscles aching from the day before, but her spirit sharp as ever. She stretched at the edge of the bed, watching Cerberus, still sleeping by the window. His ears twitched slightly at her movements, but he stayed in place, calm, peaceful. A far cry from the snarling beast that had nearly ripped her throat out 48 hours ago. She smiled. You're still in there, she whispered. I see you. In the kitchen, Maya brewed a pot of chicory coffee the old-school way, no pods, no machines, just heat, grounds, and patience. The cook, a burly man named Jorge, gave her a sideways look as she worked at the counter. You don't have to do that, he said, nodding toward the espresso bar behind her. We got tech. Maya stirred her pot gently. I like mine strong and slow. And besides, tech can't make it with soul, Jorge grunted. You got soul, all right. Bringing a damn war dog back to life with a lullaby. Maya chuckled. He's not a war dog. He's a survivor. 80 free. When she returned upstairs with 2 mugs, one for her, one with a beef bone for Cerberus, she found the dog already awake. Ears perked, tail slow thumping. She handed him the bone, and he took it gently, settling on the rug without so much as a snarl. He didn't even flinch when a vacuum started whirring down the hall. That was new. By 8, Maya had him in the rooftop courtyard, a private training space, paved in turf, surrounded by reinforced glass. The guards watched from above, hands never far from their hips. Maya could feel Enzo's surveillance. Even if he wasn't physically there, she started the session with simple commands. Sit. Stay. Down. To her surprise, Cerberus followed her instructions not like a dog remembering obedience, but like one recognizing a language he hadn't heard in years. Good boy, she praised, stroking his back. Still a king at heart. The guards raised eyebrows. One whispered, "He didn't even flinch when I walked past." "She's magic," another muttered. Around noon, Enzo appeared unannounced, of course. His suit jacket was off, his tie loose, but his eyes were still all business. "He hasn't snapped at anyone today," he said. Maya didn't look up, because no one shouted, waved a gun, or treated him like a monster. Enzo stepped closer, arms crossed. "He is a monster." "You saw it." "No," Maya corrected, her tone cool but steady. "I saw a dog in pain, and a man who's used to treating everything like a weapon, including himself." Enzo's jaw tightened. "Do you think that's funny?" "No," she said, turning to face him. "I think it's sad." The two locked eyes. For a beat, Enzo didn't respond. Then, to her surprise, he asked, "What are you feeding him? Chicken stock, rice, peas, real food. Not the performance protein we've imported?" Maya's eyebrows lifted. "He's a dog, not a Navy SEAL. He needs nourishment, not steroids." Enzo looked down at Cerberus, who lay at Maya's feet with his head on his paws, blinking slowly like a toddler post-nap. "I bought him for security," Enzo muttered, almost to himself. "You bought a ghost," Maya replied softly. "You just didn't know it." There was something fragile in the air between them, something neither wanted to name. Finally, Enzo broke the silence. "There's a gala this Friday," he said. "It's at the rooftop lounge. Corporate, press, powerful people." Maya tensed. "And I want him there. As proof that he's still under control." Maya folded her arms. "He's not a show pony." "No," Enzo agreed. "But he is a symbol. A very expensive, high-profile one. People talk when things change. I need them to see he's still mine." Maya narrowed her eyes. "He's not yours. Not anymore." Enzo's expression didn't change. "Be ready by 8. As he turned to leave, Maya called out, "What about me?" Enzo paused. "What about you?" "I don't have anything to wear to a billionaire's circus." He looked over his shoulder, eyes flicking across her frame like a transaction. "I'll have something sent up." That night, Maya found a sleek black dress waiting for her in the closet. High neckline, low back, fabric soft as air but stitched with steel. A note clipped to the hanger read, "You're not a ghost. Either. E." She rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a small smile. 3 days before the gala, Maya spent every waking hour with Cerberus. She introduced him to new people, housekeepers, assistants, even Jorge. She let him watch her cook, brush his fur, sit beside her while she hummed Creole songs he clearly remembered. Every now and then, the haunted look returned like a shadow behind his eyes, but it faded faster each time. On the third night, thunder rolled through the city. Cerberus whimpered, pacing near the window. Maya pulled out a blanket, laid it on the floor, and sang to him again. This time, he curled up without trembling. The past was still there, but it wasn't in control anymore, and for the first time in years, Maya believed she might just be able to help him rewrite it. The rooftop glittered like a postcard, Manhattan's skyline blazing in the distance, chandeliers strung like constellations across the open night air. Laughter, music, and money floated through the evening like perfume. Waiters in white jackets carried trays of champagne and foie gras, while men in $1,000 suits shook hands over backroom deals dressed as small talk. And in the center of it all stood Maya Williams. Wrapped in that black gown, Enzo's assistant had chosen a dress more powerful than any armor she'd ever worn. Maya held her head high, one hand resting lightly on the leash of the most dangerous guest in the building, Cerberus. He sat beside her, still as a statue, tongue lolling lazily, eyes scanning the crowd with quiet awareness. Not a growl, not a twitch, He was calm, poised, controlled, but Maya could feel the pressure. It wasn't just the dozens of elite eyes following them, it was the weight of knowing that one misstep, one nervous movement from the dog, and she'd lose everything. Her place, her leverage, her chance at reclaiming the only piece of family she had left. Enzo arrived fashionably late, naturally. He stepped out of the glass elevator in a midnight blue tuxedo, a diamond cufflink flashing at his wrist as he adjusted his sleeve. The room shifted. Power followed him like a storm cloud. He approached with a glass of scotch in hand and that unreadable half-smile on his lips. "You clean up well," he said, voice low. Maya didn't bother smiling. "You didn't mention the press." Enzo took a slow sip, his eyes never leaving her. "I didn't think you'd care." "Eighty not exactly." She glanced at the photographers huddled by the velvet ropes, whispering, pointing at Cerberus. "They're going to ask questions. About the dog. About me. Let them. And what do I say? That he's reformed." Enzo's gaze dropped briefly to the dog. "That you helped him remember who he was." Maya shook her head. "You want a redemption story, not a security update." "I want both," he said. "And you're the key to both. So smile, Miss Williams. Tonight, we sell forgiveness." "What?" Maya's jaw tightened. She looked down at Cerberus, who sat obediently, watching her with those familiar eyes. "I'm not here to be anyone's prop," she said softly. "No," Enzo replied, sipping again. "You're here to prove you belong in this world." Their eyes locked. No more masks, just challenge. Then the music swelled, and the crowd surged. Senators, CEOs, models, investors. They flocked to Enzo like flies to a flame. And, inevitably, to the woman and the beast, standing beside him. "What a gorgeous animal," purred one socialite. "He doesn't even flinch." A pitbull at a gala, a gray-haired banker scoffed. "Only Enzo Dante would pull it off." "Is it true she rescued him from a fighting ring?" whispered a hedge fund manager to his wife. Maya said nothing. Cerberus stayed calm, until one man approached. Slender, sharp suit, eyes like switchblades. He wore his smile like a weapon. "Gavron Marchetti," the man said, extending a hand to Enzo. "It's been a while." "Iab." Maya froze. "Gavron." Enzo's handshake was curt. "Didn't expect you here." "Nor did I expect to see Cerberus," Gavron said, eyes sliding to the dog, looking healthy, calmer. Then his gaze landed on Maya. "And you must be the one who broke the beast." His smile didn't reach his eyes. Maya felt the leash tighten in her grip. Cerberus was still, but the hair along his neck had lifted ever so slightly. She cleared her throat. "You're the breeder?" "I prefer the term trainer," Gavron replied smoothly. "Though I suppose I've done both." Cerberus was difficult. "You stole him," Maya said flatly. Gavron raised a brow, mockingly surprised. "Is that what you think?" "I know it," she snapped. "You took him from a yard in Queens, changed his name, broke him." Enzo's eyes flicked toward her, surprised by her public tone, but he didn't interrupt. Gavron's smirk grew colder. "The world doesn't care where loyalty is forged, Miss Williams. Only that it holds when it matters." He took a slow step closer. Cerberus rose, not with a growl, not with aggression, with warning. A single, low vibration in his chest like a distant drumbeat in the jungle. Gavron stopped. "Interesting," he muttered. "Still remembers me." "He remembers who hurt him," Maya said, voice steady. "And who didn't." She reached down, brushing her fingers through Cerberus's fur. "You trained him to be a monster," she added. "But you couldn't erase love." Gavron's expression shifted. Just for a second, something sour, almost threatened. Then he laughed. "Well," he said, "we'll see how long sentiment holds when he's tested." He disappeared into the crowd. Enzo stepped closer to Maya. "That was a risk," he said under his breath. "He's dangerous," she replied. "He doesn't belong here." "I wasn't talking about the dog. We have denied." They stood in silence for a moment, Cerberus between them like the border of two worlds. Then Enzo's voice dropped. "Keep him close," he said. "Tonight's not over." At that moment, A woman in a red dress screamed. Guests parted like water. One of the bartenders was on the floor, shaking, face pale, eyes wide. Beside him, a tall man in a wrinkled gray suit was backing away, hands raised. "I didn't touch him," he shouted. "I swear he just collapsed." Someone called for help. Another screamed for security. Enzo's face shifted instantly into command mode. "Marco, clear the crowd. Get the medic team up here now." Maya looked around. Something was off. Her instincts screamed it. She crouched next to Cerberus, who was standing now, ears up, tail still. "What is it, boy?" she whispered. The dog didn't bark, but he did turn, facing not the man on the floor, but toward the elevator. Maya looked, and what she saw made her blood run cold. A man was standing inside alone, dressed as a waiter, face half hidden behind a serving tray. But Cerberus was growling, now low and guttural. The man locked eyes with Maya, then pressed something on the tray, and vanished as the elevator doors slid shut. "Enzo!" she screamed. "Get down!" The explosion wasn't deafening, but it was strategic. A concussive pop echoed from the elevator shaft, sending a shockwave of heat and smoke through the rooftop gala. The chandeliers trembled. Glass shattered somewhere. The crowd screamed. For a few chaotic seconds, it felt like the entire rooftop tilted. Then the fire alarm started blaring. Maya dropped to her knees, throwing an arm over Cerberus as instinct and muscle memory kicked in. Enzo Dante was already moving, barking orders into a mic clipped to his lapel. "Lock the elevators. Lock every stairwell. Marco, status. Now." Guards surged through the rooftop, weapons drawn, herding guests behind steel partitions disguised as decor. Some people cried, others shouted demands, but Maya ignored all of them because Cerberus wasn't looking at the smoke. He was looking at her, alert, waiting, asking. "Go," she said, unhooking the leash. He bolted without hesitation toward the stairs, the smoke, the danger, and Maya ran after him. "Williams!" Enzo's voice shouted behind her. "Where the hell are you going?" She didn't answer. There was no time. The stairwell was lit with emergency lights, glowing red like a war zone. Smoke curled along the ceiling. Somewhere below, someone was shouting short, clipped words in a language Maya didn't recognize. Cerberus growled low, ears flat, then started descending, careful but fast. Maya followed, heart hammering. They hit the 30th floor when she saw the first sign of violence. 2 guards unconscious near the fire door. Taser burns on their necks. This wasn't random. Whoever the waiter was, he came for something. Or someone. Cerberus stopped at the door marked 29. Nose to the seam. Then he whined a confused, soft sound. Maya pressed her hand to his head and opened the door slowly. A hallway stretched ahead, untouched by smoke. Quiet. Too quiet. Then, a cry. Small, frightened, childlike. Maya's stomach twisted. "There are kids up here?" Cerberus sprinted ahead, rounding a corner into what looked like a private apartment inside the building, marble floors. Gallery paintings, a grand piano tucked in the corner, and in the middle of it, curled behind a couch, was a boy. Maybe 7 or 8. Pale skin, dark hair, dressed in a velvet dinner jacket. Maya ran toward him, but Cerberus got there first and did the unexpected. He lay down, not in front of the boy, next to him. The boy flinched, but when he saw the dog's eyes calm, grounded, waiting, he crawled forward and wrapped tiny arms around Cerberus's thick neck. "It's okay," Maya whispered, crouching next to them. "You're safe now." "Are you the lady from the gala?" the boy whispered. "The one with the dog?" She nodded. "What's your name?" "Eli." Maya froze. She recognized the name. Eli Dante, Enzo's son. Before she could ask more, the intercom buzzed overhead, an old-school speaker buried in the wall. A voice came through, mechanical and smug. "You moved fast, Dante. I'll give you that." Maya looked up, scanning the room. "Who the hell is this?" Enzo's voice crackled through the line. "You know who I am. You stole from me." "I don't steal," Enzo barked. "I acquire, legally." The voice laughed. "You acquired Gavron's dog. That dog was never meant to be seen in public again. You've made him visible, and now I have your son." Maya's blood turned cold. She looked at Eli, who was clutching Cerberus like a life raft. The boy was shaking. "No, you don't." Enzo's voice said tightly. He's not yours to touch. He is if you want him back in one piece. A brief hiss of static. Unless you return the dog. The intercom went dead. Maya's fingers tightened on the leash. So that's what this was about. Not the gala. Not a message. A bargain. They wanted Cerberus back. Back to fighting rings. Back to pain. Back to the man who'd broken him. No, she whispered. Over my dead body. She pulled Eli close. Can you walk? The boy nodded shakily. Maya looked at Cerberus. Guard him. You hear me? He's the most important person here. The dog stood and positioned himself like a shield between them and the door. Just then, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Too heavy, too fast. Maya stood, eyes wide, just as a masked man in black turned the corner, a taser in one hand, a gun in the other. Cerberus growled a sound so deep it seemed to rattle the walls. The man raised the taser. Maya stepped in front of Eli without thinking, but she didn't need to, because Cerberus launched. He didn't just attack, he flew. The man's gun went off, but the shot hit the ceiling as the Pitbull slammed him against the wall like a wrecking ball. There was no hesitation, no cruelty, just precision. A protector reborn. Maya grabbed Eli's hand and ran. They burst into the hall, ducked into a stairwell, and began climbing 2 floors, 3 until voices reached them. Familiar ones. Enzo's. Maya, he shouted, appearing at the top of the stairs with guards at his back. Eli, he choked out when he saw his son. The boy broke free and ran to him. Enzo dropped to his knees, pulling the child into his arms. For a moment, everything else fell away. Maya reached the top step just as Cerberus limped up behind her. Panting but alive, Enzo stood slowly, still clutching Eli. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Enzo didn't look at Maya with suspicion. He looked at her with respect. She was bleeding, smoke-smudged, shaking but steady. You saved my son, he said, voice raw. Maya exhaled. He wasn't the only one worth saving. Behind her, Cerberus wagged his tail once, and in the space between past and future, something unspoken shifted between them all. The aftermath was quieter than the explosion but somehow heavier. Emergency services swarmed the tower within minutes. NYPD cruisers, unmarked black SUVs, fire trucks, and a few ominous vehicles bearing government plates lined the street below like chess pieces in formation. The gala guests had been escorted out quickly, wrapped in blankets, murmuring into cell phones, giving statements to stone-faced officers. But Enzo Dante's penthouse was sealed. What happened upstairs that was not meant for public consumption? Maya sat on the edge of a leather bench in the East Wing corridor, still in her black gown from the gala. The hem was torn. Her heels were gone. Her arms trembled slightly, her knees bruised from the stairwell. A medic had checked her, offered painkillers, but she waved them off. Cerberus lay beside her, tongue out, belly rising and falling fast, his front paw wrapped in gauze. She reached down and stroked his head, whispering, "Good boy, my brave boy." He licked her wrist. Across the hall, Enzo paced like a caged animal. Suit coat off, shirt collar open. His hands kept running through his hair. Eli sat quietly on a sofa near the fireplace, wrapped in a gray wool blanket. He hadn't spoken since they'd escaped the stairwell. Marco approached from the main hall, phone pressed to his ear. The FBI is in contact. The elevator detonation was low yield. Military grade, likely smuggled in through catering. Enzo shot Maya a glance, then looked back at Marco. They're saying this was cartel? No, not their style. It's more personal. Enzo's voice dropped to a dark whisper. Gavron. Maya stood slowly, her limbs protesting. He was there, at the gala, taunting us. He's not stupid enough to do this himself, Enzo muttered, but he's desperate enough to send a message. Maya crossed her arms, and the message is clear. He wants the dog. Tuway Day, Cerberus whimpered. Eli, from across the room, finally spoke. His voice was small. Why? Everyone turned. Why does he want King? The boy asked. Maya crouched beside him. Because Cerberus used to be his, but he was taken away. And some people don't like losing control. Eli looked at her with eyes far too old for his age. He saved me. I know, sweetheart. The boy turned to his father. You're not giving him back, are you? Enzo hesitated. A beat too long. Eli's voice cracked. Dad? I'm not letting anyone hurt you again. Enzo said quickly, kneeling beside his son. But this isn't just about the dog. It's about leverage. Blackmail. Exposure. Maya stepped closer. You saw what Cerberus did. He risked himself for your child. He chose to protect, not attack. Enzo stood slowly. He's still a weapon, Maya. She met his gaze. He was turned into one, but he was born a companion, a protector. Just like every other creature we twist into tools. Oh, Enzo exhaled, his jaw tight. Do you have any idea what kind of enemies I have? What kind of enemies he's made? Yeah, Maya said, stepping forward. And you know what? So do I. And I'm not scared of them. Enzo looked at her then. Really looked like someone seeing a thing not for what it is, but for what it survived. You're not just a waitress, are you? Maya smiled faintly. Depends who's asking. There was a silence between them, broken only by the distant wail of sirens below. Then Marco returned. We found something. He handed Enzo a plastic evidence bag. Inside was a phone cracked, scorched, but not destroyed. Recovered from the man Cerberus attacked, Marco explained. Unlocked with a biometric thumb reader. Enzo tapped through the contents, eyes scanning rapidly. His face darkened. Gavrin's not working alone. He turned the screen to Maya. A photo displayed Cerberus in a cage, blood on the walls, eyes glassy with pain. But in the corner of the photo, standing in shadows, was another man, unfamiliar, wearing a lab coat. Who's that? Maya asked. No ID yet, Marco said. But he's in 6 different files, all dog-related. Experimental conditioning. Military contracts. Maya's stomach churned. They were experimenting on him? Enzo nodded grimly. Gavrin wasn't training Cerberus to fight. He was training him not to feel, not to remember. Probably using some kind of trauma reversal conditioning. He remembers me, Maya said quietly. That means something didn't work. No, Enzo said. That means you broke through it. They all stood still a moment, surrounded by thickening dread. Then Maya said, We can't wait for them to come again. Enzo arched a brow. You have a plan? She looked at Cerberus, then at Eli, and finally back to Enzo. You have security. You have money. You have reach. But I have his trust. And if they want him that badly, then we make them come to us. D2X. Marco blinked. You're suggesting bait? Maya nodded. And you're suggesting we just hide forever? Enzo folded his arms. If we go public, they'll retaliate. Then we prepare. There was a long pause. The kind of pause that happens when a line gets drawn in the sand, and everyone has to choose a side. Then Enzo finally said, All right, we play it your way, but if this goes south, I know. Maya interrupted. It's my head on the block. No, Enzo said, looking at his son. It's his. Ibe. They stood together in the firelight, shadows tall behind them. Cerberus barked once. The hunt had begun. 3 days later, the world still hadn't heard about the attempted kidnapping of Eli Dante. The headlines were filled with fluff. Dante's rooftop gala. Interrupted by technical malfunction. Not a single mention of smoke, tasers, or a stolen Pitbull. Turned hero. Enzo had locked it all down, paid off media outlets, silenced security leaks, and redirected attention toward market movements and corporate mergers. But behind the glass of his empire, a war was quietly brewing, and Maya was in the heart of it. The training room on the lower level, once used for private boxing sessions, was now Cerberus's sanctuary. Padded floors, steel walls, multiple exits, cameras in every corner. But it was Maya's voice, not the surveillance, that held the dog's attention. Focus, she whispered, standing still as a statue. Cerberus stared at her, eyes wide and alert. A man stepped out from a hidden side panel dressed like the attacker from the gala, mask and all, holding a replica taser. Cerberus's hackles rose, but he didn't move. Wait, Maya said softly, eyes never leaving the dog. The man lunged fast, aggressive. Now, Cerberus leapt not to kill, but to disarm. He pinned the man, snatched the fake weapon with his teeth, and backed away. The entire maneuver had taken less than 3 seconds. Marco, watching from behind the glass, let out a low whistle. He's getting sharper. He's getting free, Maya corrected, kneeling beside Cerberus to check his pause. You sure this plan's going to work? Marco asked. No, she admitted, but it's the only one that feels right. And the plan was simple in concept, complex in execution. Create a false auction listing black market-style advertising, a rare, conditioned Pitbull with a violent history and experimental enhancements. Worded in code only someone familiar with Gavron's network would understand. A trap, set not with teeth, but truth. Marco had already set the wheels in motion, sending word through encrypted channels. They used burner accounts, dark websites, even whispers in underground fight circuits. And now, they waited. By noon, they had a bite. Enzo met them in the war room, his private office turned command center. Monitors lined the walls, each one showing a different feed. Lobby entrances, street cams, social media trackers, dark web listings, crypto wallets. This came through 15 minutes ago, he said, forwarding an audio file to the main speaker. The voice was distorted, male, calm, cold. Package identified, condition verified, interested in reclamation, payment won't be necessary. We simply take back what's ours. Expect company. A click. Silence. Maya's blood ran cold. They're coming. Enzo nodded. Soon. Where? She asked. Warehouse district, Pier 41. We'll set up the drop. Maya folded her arms. I'll go with him. No, Enzo snapped. You've done enough. Let me handle this. Maya didn't flinch. He won't go without me. You know that. Their eyes locked. A silent standoff. Finally, Enzo looked away. Fine. But you wear a vest. That night, the Dante convoy rolled into the abandoned shipyard like a ghost fleet. Fog drifted off the river. Rusted containers lined the dock like sleeping giants. The entire setup had been orchestrated to look like an illicit exchange, an anonymous seller bringing in a dangerous animal for trade. Enzo stayed inside the armored SUV, flanked by guards. Maya stood at the center of the dock, Cerberus by her side, leash loose in her hand. She wore black cargo pants, a bulletproof vest beneath her coat, and her nerves strung tighter than piano wire. Cerberus didn't move, didn't growl, but his body was alert, low to the ground, breathing steady. They're late, Marco said through her earpiece. Or watching, Maya murmured. Suddenly, floodlights exploded above them. 3 black SUVs roared into the clearing, surrounding the pier with military precision. Doors opened. Men in tactical gear spilled out, silent, organized, armed. But not police, not government, private. A figure stepped forward. Not Gavron. Someone older, taller. The man in the lab coat from the photo. I'm Dr. Langston, he said, voice smooth like silk over steel. And that's my property. Maya stepped forward, shielding Cerberus. He's not property. Langston tilted his head. You're the handler. The one who broke the suppression loop. I'm the one who brought him home. Town. Langston clicked his tongue. We spent years erasing memory, conditioning rage, breeding instinct. And you reversed it with lullabies? Maya didn't blink. I didn't reverse it. I reminded him who he was. Langston stepped closer. Cerberus growled. One of the guards raised a rifle. Enzo's voice crackled in Maya's earpiece. Say the word. Not yet, she whispered. Langston looked at the dog with eerie fascination. He was meant for war. Maya narrowed her eyes. Then maybe he's done fighting. Langston gave a slight nod, and all hell broke loose. His men surged forward, but Enzo's guards were ready, emerging from containers, rooftop nests, and alleyways. Gunfire crackled through the fog. Maya dropped low, shielding Cerberus as he barked a sound not of fear, but fury, the kind that said, not again, never again. Langston fled toward his SUV. Maya gave chase. She ducked behind crates, sprinted through smoke, and found him climbing into the back seat. Cerberus ran ahead fast. Agile leapt into the vehicle before it could close. Langston screamed. Seconds later, Enzo's guards swarmed the SUV. Langston was pulled out, cuffed, and dragged into the light. He was still shouting when they loaded him into the unmarked van. "You can't keep him. He's mine. I made him what he is." Maya stood over him. "No," she said. "You tried to destroy him. He made himself." Cerberus padded to her side, nuzzling her hip. Above them, dawn broke over the Hudson, and for the first time in years, Maya believed they might finally be free. The morning after the ambush at Pier 41, Enzo Dante sat at the head of a long walnut conference table inside his downtown Manhattan penthouse. The glass walls behind him framed the skyline like a kingdom of light and steel. But today, even the city's shine couldn't soften his expression. He was silent, fingers steepled beneath his chin as his legal team, security consultants, and crisis managers debated over one another. "Langston's arrest puts us at risk if the story leaks," barked Rhonda McGill, Dante Corporation's PR chief. "The press will eat this alive." "He was operating illegally," countered Marco, seated to Enzo's right. "Unlicensed testing, trafficking, brainwashing dogs into weapons. And who owns the building where half of this took place?" Rhonda shot back. You, Enzo, you and your foundation." Maya leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, watching the argument unfold like a chess match with no king. Cerberus sat at her feet, head resting between his paws, his amber eyes drifting toward Enzo now and again. He could sense the tension, feel it in the tempo of human breathing. Maya had no seat at this table, not officially. But everyone in the room kept glancing at her, because they knew she was the reason Enzo's son was alive, the reason the beast hadn't turned feral, the reason the experiment hadn't ended in another tragedy. "I'll handle the press," Enzo said finally, his voice like frost. "Langston's lab was off-grid. His connection to us was buried in cutouts. If anything leaks, it'll be about a dogfighting ring, not corporate malpractice." "And Gavrin?" asked a legal aide. Enzo's jaw flexed. "Gone. Underground." Maya spoke up. "He'll surface. Men like that always do when they feel their ego's been bruised." The room went quiet. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. Enzo gestured toward her. "Everyone out." The team hesitated. I said out. They filed out in awkward silence, leaving just Enzo, Maya, and Cerberus behind. "You don't like suits," he said when the door clicked shut. "I don't trust boardrooms," Maya replied. "Too many knives dressed as fountain pens." Enzo smirked faintly. "You sound like my grandfather." Smart man, then." He walked to the window, hands in his pockets. "You risked your life for my son, twice, and last night, you could have run, left the dog, saved yourself. I'm not built that way." "I know," he said quietly. Maya approached slowly. "So what now?" Enzo turned. "Now, I make you an offer." She blinked. "An offer?" "Full-time, in-house, head of behavioral rehabilitation at Dante Foundation. Cerberus will be your primary charge, but not your only one." Maya stared at him. "You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a mission. You broke through what years of science and cruelty couldn't. I want you to lead something bigger. Turn what they did into something good. Help others like Cerberus." She hesitated. "You think I can do that?" "I know you can." He walked to her, holding out a sleek folder official, sealed with his company's crest. "You deserve more than a leash in a guest room, Maya. You deserve a seat at the table." "Oh." She took the folder but didn't open it. Cerberus wagged his tail, just once. "And what about Eli?" she asked softly. "What will he grow up thinking about all this?" Enzo's eyes darkened. "That monsters can be made, but heroes choose themselves." He stepped back. "Take time to think about it." But she didn't need time. "I'm in," she said. "But on one condition." Enzo raised an eyebrow. "I want the last word on Cerberus, not the board. Not the investors. Me. He's family now." "I tinsit." Enzo nodded slowly. "Then welcome to the family." She glanced at Cerberus, who had risen and walked between them, tail wagging harder now. He nudged Enzo's hand, then looked up at Maya. "We're all a little broken," she whispered, crouching beside him. "But broken things still shine, don't they?" The dog licked her cheek. From the far hallway, small footsteps approached. Eli stood at the doorway, still in pajamas, holding a drawing in his hand. "I made this," he said quietly, walking toward them. He held it up, a crayon picture of a big brown dog, a woman with curly hair, and a boy smiling under a tree. Above them, a stick-figure man in a suit held a leash cut in half by a bright red X. "Cerberus is ours now," Eli declared. Enzo took the paper, staring at it for a long moment. Then he looked at Maya. "You good with kids?" "I'm learning," she said, smiling softly. He returned the smile, small, guarded, but real. Outside, the city moved as always, loud, relentless, unforgiving. But inside the penthouse, something rare had taken root. Not peace. Not yet. But maybe. Finally. A path toward it. 2 weeks passed. New York carried on. Business as usual, traffic snarling through Fifth Avenue. Hot dog vendors shouting on corners. Construction drilling into the bones of the city like a second heartbeat. But within the walls of Dante Corporation's Lower East Annex, something extraordinary was unfolding. Maya had transformed the once abandoned behavioral research wing into a sanctuary for recovery, not just for dogs, but for herself. There were no cold kennels here, no metal cages, only soft light, gentle voices, and the slow rebuilding of trust. Cerberus was the heart of it. His story had begun to circulate quietly among military contacts, shelter networks, even ex-K9 units. People whispered about the Pitbull who once obeyed killers, but now slept beside children, who had been trained to destroy, but had chosen to protect. And because of him, more dogs began arriving. Scarred, nervous, but not broken, Maya worked around the clock, feeding, training, comforting. Her hands, once raw from wiping down tables, now stroked the fur of war dogs and wounded strays. And every day, Cerberus watched her like a sentinel, never straying far. One crisp Friday morning, Maya stood outside the recovery yard, coffee in hand, watching a shepherd mix named Knox chase leaves through the breeze. She smiled, then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. After Langston's takedown, Enzo had rerouted all security calls through a private server. This bypassed it. She answered cautiously. "Hello?" A voice replied, distorted, familiar. "Miss Williams, you've made quite the reputation." She stiffened. "Gavron," a soft chuckle. "Your dog's quite the performer. The gala. The rescue. The press thinks he's a damn superhero. Because he is. Funny," Gavron said, his tone twisting. "You never asked where I found him, or what he did before you started playing nursemaid." Maya's throat tightened. "I know enough. You know what he remembers. That's different." Silence stretched between them. Then he dropped the match. "You should ask Enzo about Jordan." Maya's heart stopped. "What?" "Ask him," Gavron repeated. "Ask him why he bought Cerberus, why he kept him locked away, and why Jordan never came home." The line went dead. Maya stood frozen. Her breath fogged in the air, but she felt cold beneath her skin. Jordan. The name had been buried in the rescue records. A soldier, K9, handler, reported missing in action, presumed dead. One of the last humans Cerberus had been assigned to, and Enzo had never mentioned him, not once. Later that day, Maya sat across from Enzo in his office, the crayon drawing Eli had made weeks ago still pinned behind his desk. "I need to ask you something," she said, voice even. He looked up from his laptop. "Of course." She didn't hesitate. "Who was Jordan?" The question hit like a slap. Enzo's fingers froze mid-keystroke, his jaw tensed. He leaned back slowly in his chair. "Where did you hear that name? Does it matter?" His eyes darkened. "It does if it came from Gavron." Will 5. Maya crossed her arms. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it wasn't your weight to carry." Cerberus remembers him. Enzo exhaled hard and rose, walking to the window. Manhattan glittered behind him, but his reflection looked like a man haunted. "Jordan Thorne," he said quietly. "Special Forces. One of the best K9 handlers I've ever met. Worked with the department on some off-book programs, including Project Midas." Maya frowned. "The military-funded obedience conditioning?" Enzo nodded. "Cerberus was a candidate. Jordan volunteered. Said if the dog had to endure it, He'd endure it with him. They were bonded more than handler and dog. They were family. What happened? Enzo's voice dropped. Something went wrong during testing. Gavron pushed the conditioning too far. They say Cerberus snapped, killed 2 handlers. Jordan disappeared. Maya's stomach turned. You don't believe that, do you? No, Enzo said. I believe Gavron buried the truth, and that's why I bought the dog. To keep him out of further experimentation. To protect him. You never thought I deserved to know. I didn't want you looking at him like a weapon again. I never saw him that way, Maya said, her voice rising. You did. Enzo turned slowly, something vulnerable flickering in his eyes. I saw a ghost, he said. I saw what Gavron made. What I might have become if I hadn't walked away. But then you turned the ghost into a guardian. Maya softened, but only slightly. We need to find out what happened to Jordan. Enzo nodded. Then we find him. That night, Maya returned to the recovery room. The lights were low, soft music playing from a vintage radio. Cerberus lay curled near the heater, breathing slow. She knelt beside him. You knew he was still out there, she whispered, stroking his ear. Didn't you? Cerberus opened one eye, didn't move. I'm going to find him, I promise. She felt it then, something shift between them again. Not just loyalty, but purpose. From the shadows, Eli stepped in, holding a new drawing. This one showed 3 figures, Maya, Cerberus, and a soldier with a scar. He looks like the man from my dream, Eli said softly. Maya's heart skipped. Cerberus stood, and in his eyes, clearer than any command, was the name they both hadn't said aloud. Jordan. The winter sun barely broke through the cloud cover as Maya stared at the worn personnel file Enzo had handed her the night before. The folder was thick, the pages yellowing at the edges, water-stained like it had been left somewhere it wasn't meant to be. Jordan Thorne, declassified. Level 3. Underneath, in black marker, were 3 words stamped diagonally across the page. Presumed Kia. Killed in action. Except, Maya no longer believed in that story. She sat in the private archive room of the Dante Foundation, the only place where these old files still existed unaltered. Behind her, Cerberus sat alert, eyes on the door, ears twitching at every creak of the building. He hadn't rested properly since last night, neither had she. On the first page, there was a photo. Jordan was young, maybe late 20s. All square jaw and wide shoulders, he stood in full combat gear, one hand resting on the back of a Pitbull that looked all too familiar. Cerberus, but smaller, leaner, with fear behind his eyes instead of fury. Maya flipped through the page's deployment logs, mission codes, medical reports. There were gaps, months at a time, where no activity was recorded. Those blank spaces spoke louder than the ink ever could. Then she found something. A faded requisition request for an off-grid training facility. A code name. Site Indigo. No listed location. No mission notes. Just one phrase scribbled in the margin. Test phase. Full submission. Maya whispered. What did they do to you? Cerberus whined, his head brushing her arm. Suddenly, her phone vibrated. It was Marco. We got something, he said. An old contact of mine in Virginia intercepted a secure channel encrypted chatter. Someone's asking about Jordan. Someone new. Maya stood. Where? Wyoming. South Pass near the Wind River Range. Old mining land. There's a decommissioned military zone not listed on current maps. Send me everything. She hung up and stormed into Enzo's office minutes later, file in hand, dog at her side. You knew about Site Indigo, she accused. Enzo didn't deny it. I suspected it. I never confirmed it. You lied to me. I protected you. You keep saying that, Maya snapped. But maybe I never needed protecting. Maybe Jordan didn't either. Enzo leaned forward, elbows on his desk. This isn't just about you, or Cerberus, or even Jordan. Site Indigo was scrubbed because it violated every law in the book. What's buried there could bring down people far above me. Maya's voice dropped. Then maybe it's time they fall. He looked at her for a long time. Finally, he nodded. I'll fund the trip. No records. No backup. You'll go alone. Or, you can walk away. She turned for the door. I stopped walking away the moment Cerberus remembered my voice. A.2. They flew private, no flight plan filed, no TSA questions. Just Maya, Cerberus, and 2 duffel bags packed with survival gear and a burner satellite phone. The descent into Wyoming was rough, the wind punching the small aircraft as it landed on a hidden strip near the mountains. Marco had set her up with a battered black Jeep, a printed map, and one warning: trust your instincts. They won't want you there. Taftery. The terrain was harsh, rocky, snow-dusted, dotted with pine trees that whispered in the wind. Maya drove for hours into isolation, the mountains closing in like giants. Finally, just before dusk, she saw it. 2 rusted watchtowers, long abandoned, half swallowed by the wilderness. Sight indigo. She parked behind a fallen tree and hiked the final half-mile on foot, Cerberus trailing close. The main building was skeletal corrugated steel, broken windows, paint peeling like dead skin. There were no signs, no guards. But the silence was wrong. Too perfect. They entered through a side door, flashlight cutting through dust. Old kennels lined the far wall. Dried blood stained the corners. Everything reeked of neglect. And something older. Pain. Cerberus sniffed a corner, then froze. He growled low and uncertain. "What is it?" Maya whispered. She turned the corner, and found a bunker door slightly ajar, a faint light flickering beneath. She reached slowly, pushed it open. The room beyond was surprisingly intact, makeshift furniture. A generator humming. A small heater glowing in the corner. It looked lived in. Recently. Then she saw him, a man, seated in a metal chair, sharpening a blade by the light. He was older than the photo in the file. Beard now flecked with gray. One arm wrapped in a makeshift sling. A long scar ran from temple to jaw. But the eyes were the same. So was the dog tag around his neck. "Jordan," Maya said. The man didn't move, but Cerberus did. He stepped forward, slowly, tail low. Then without warning he broke into a run. Maya reached to stop him, but Cerberus didn't attack. He stopped at Jordan's feet, nose pressed to the man's leg, trembling. Jordan dropped the blade, and for the first time in years, he spoke. "Easy, boy. Easy." Cerberus licked his hand. Maya's breath caught. Jordan finally looked up. "You're the girl from the lullaby," he rasped. Maya blinked. "How do you?" "Every night," he whispered. He howled. "Wouldn't sleep unless I sang. Same melody. Same cadence." He smiled faintly. "You saved him." "No," Maya whispered. "He saved me." Outside, wind rattled the walls, but in the bunker, time had bent, folded around something lost and now found. Maya knelt beside them, her voice soft. "Jordan, we need your help." He nodded. "I've been waiting for someone to come." With state, the wind howled outside the bunker like a wounded animal. A low, aching sound that seemed to echo from the bones of the mountain itself. Inside, the silence between Maya and Jordan was thicker than the cold. The heater hissed softly in the corner, its glow flickering across their faces like firelight in a war story. Cerberus lay curled at Jordan's feet, his breathing steady, peaceful. He hadn't moved since he sat there like he'd finally found what he'd been looking for. Jordan, however, looked like a man still unsure if he was truly awake. His eyes never left Maya. "You want to know what happened?" he said at last. "Yes," Maya answered. "Everything." Jordan's knuckles tightened around his canteen. He took a sip, then exhaled slow. "I was recruited into Project Midas 6 years ago. Special Forces had gotten wind of behavioral testing in Eastern Europe, rogue scientists trying to use trauma as a control tool. The theory was, if you could induce enough pain, you could reset loyalty, wipe memories, forge obedience. Maya flinched. They were breaking dogs. Jordan nodded. And sometimes men. He glanced at the scar on his wrist. They paired handlers and dogs to test resilience. Cerberus and we connected fast. But he was already broken when I got him. I didn't train him, I unlearned him. Every day, I sang to him. Every night, I stayed awake while he shook in his sleep. His voice faltered. And then they told me to kill him. Maya froze. "What?" Jordan's eyes burned. They said he had failed protocol, that he hesitated to strike in the kill test. Gavron called him defective, weak, said we needed clean termination before the next batch arrived. And what did you do? She asked, barely breathing. Jordan looked down at Cerberus, his voice barely a whisper. I ran. He closed his eyes. I took him and I ran. The silence returned, heavier this time. They caught me 2 days later near Denver, shot me, left me for dead in a ditch. He tapped his chest. A rancher found me. I disappeared. Figured if Cerberus was taken, I'd never see him again. I didn't want him to remember me as a ghost. He never forgot, Maya said. Jordan gave a crooked smile. Neither did I. She reached into her coat and pulled out the photo from his file, the one with him and Cerberus at full height. I think it's time we show the world the truth. 2003 then. Jordan looked at it, his eyes glazing. They'll come for us, Maya. The people behind Site Indigo, they buried this for a reason. Gavron's just a pawn. There are others higher up. If we go public, they'll bury us too. Maya didn't look away. Then we dig louder. A long pause stretched between them. Jordan stood slowly, his body stiff. He moved to a steel locker near the heater and pulled out a tattered duffel bag. Inside were photos, drives, printed reports, evidence. He turned back to her. You really think one waitress and one mutt can take down a ghost government? Maya stood, shouldering her bag. I think 3 survivors can. Jordan studied her for a long time. Then finally he laughed. Not loud, but honest. You've got fire. I'll give you that. He looked down at Cerberus. What do you say, partner? Cerberus stood and wagged his tail. Outside, the wind had begun to slow. They drove through the night, switching out stolen license plates, using snow-covered back roads that twisted like nerves through the wilderness. Maya kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting headlights. But none came. At sunrise, they crossed into Colorado. By noon, they reached a safe house just outside Boulder, arranged by Marco, who greeted them with eyebrows raised. You're alive, he said, stepping out of the cabin. Jordan eyed him. And you are? Someone who keeps Enzo from getting assassinated in boardrooms. Marco Vega. Jordan grunted. That's supposed to impress me? No, Marco said, unbothered. But I'm the one who made sure Maya didn't get followed. So maybe save the growl. They stepped inside. The air smelled of cedar and old books. Eli was there, sketching by the window, eyes widening when he saw Jordan. Is that him? The boy whispered to Maya. Maya nodded. That's the soldier from your drawing. Eli stood, slowly walking over. Jordan knelt carefully. You're the one Cerberus was waiting for, Eli said. Jordan blinked. I guess I was. Cerberus walked between them and nudged Eli gently. The boy grinned. He's not scared of you. No, Jordan said softly. He remembers me. Marco cleared his throat. We need to move fast. I've contacted someone inside a private intelligence forum. Former whistleblowers, military defectors. They'll help get the files out. But if you're going public, we need proof. Video. Testimony. Jordan nodded. I'll record it. He looked at Maya. You too. You're the reason people will believe this. You turned a weapon into a friend. Later that night, Maya and Jordan sat in front of a camera. The footage was raw. Real. No makeup. No scripts. Jordan told his story, beginning to end. Maya followed, showing how Cerberus had remembered, resisted, and healed. At the end, Cerberus sat between them. Jordan looked into the lens. I'm not a hero, he said. But I couldn't stay quiet anymore. They taught me to fight shadows. But I'm done hiding from the light. The camera clicked off. They sat in silence for a long time. Then Maya whispered, This won't end quietly. Will it? Jordan's face darkened. No, it'll end with fire. But for the first time, Maya didn't feel afraid. She felt ready. The video went live at 7:06 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It didn't hit the networks. Not at first. It wasn't posted by Enzo's PR firm, or a verified influencer or a news outlet. It was uploaded by a civilian, an anonymous account with 0 followers. But within 12 hours, it had 2 million views. By midnight, 28. Maya sat in the dim light of the Boulder safe house, watching the numbers rise on Marco's monitor, her breath shallow. Jordan stood behind her, arms crossed, jaw clenched like a soldier waiting for impact. Cerberus lay by the fire, unmoving, eyes open and watchful. Even he seemed to know the clock had started ticking. Enzo called just after 1 a.m. "You lit a fuse," he said, his voice hard, but not angry. "We needed to," Maya replied. "You realize the department will have eyes on you in under 24 hours? They already do." He sighed. "You're not safe anymore." "I never was." Jordan took the phone. "She's not alone. Neither are you," Enzo said after a pause. "I've got a private jet standing by, if things go south." "No," Jordan cut in. "We stay. We finish this." Or it all meant nothing. Silence on the other end. Then Enzo said something unexpected. "I'm proud of you both." And the line went dead. By morning, the war had begun. Not with bullets, not yet, but with discredit. Anonymous articles spread across fringe news sites. Jordan Thorne, unstable vet, with PTSD, makes wild claims about military abuse. Maya was accused of being a radical, an activist with fabricated credentials. The video was flagged for graphic content and temporarily taken down on one platform, only to reappear twice as fast on encrypted networks. "Classic playbook," Marco said, pacing the cabin. "Create confusion, discredit the source, undermine emotion, then disappear the evidence." "Will they come here?" Eli asked, clutching his sketchbook. Jordan knelt beside him. "They won't touch you, I swear. We free." But Jordan looked to Maya when he said it, and his eyes told another story. They both knew what was coming. That night, just after 2 a.m., a motion sensor tripped. Marco checked the monitor and swore. "We've got movement. 2 SUVs. No lights, no plates." Maya moved fast. Grabbed Eli, Cerberus, and the go bag she'd prepped days ago. "Through the back," she whispered. "Cabin B is still secure?" Marco nodded. "Get to the ridge. I'll draw them off." He pulled out a concealed weapon and gave Jordan a tight nod. 10 minutes, max, then we vanish." The next hour was chaos. Gunfire cracked through the trees as Marco's decoy vehicle drew the first responders away. Maya led Eli through the snowy brush, her breath fogging in front of her face, Cerberus running silently ahead like a ghost. Jordan brought up the rear, his sidearm gripped, his shoulder wound beginning to ache again from the cold and the exertion. By dawn, they reached the ridge. Cabin B was smaller, more rustic, no electricity, no running water, but it was hidden, deep in the tree line, undetectable without a map. Eli collapsed on the cot, Cerberus curling beside him protectively. Maya stood by the window, watching the road. Jordan approached behind her, silent for a moment. "You think they'll stop?" he asked. "No." "Then what's next?" Maya turned. "We don't run anymore." She reached into her coat and pulled out a second flash drive, the one they hadn't uploaded, the one with GPS coordinates. "Site Indigo still exists," she said. "Buried. Forgotten. But the foundation's there. Proof is there. If we find it, we bring it to light." Jordan nodded. "Then we go back to where it all began." She looked down at Eli, fast asleep with his arms wrapped around Cerberus. "I'm not losing anyone else." 18. The next day, Enzo arranged a secure route back toward the Wind River Range. This time, they went deeper beyond where Maya had found Jordan. He guided them to a second, older site, one even he hadn't been aware of until recently. It had been uncovered in a satellite scan, hidden beneath collapsed rock and snow. Site Indigo's original facility. They arrived after nightfall, headlights sweeping over concrete ruins half swallowed by the mountain. Jordan stepped out first, flashlight in hand, his breath forming ghosts in the freezing air. "This is it," he murmured. "This is where they broke us." Cerberus walked beside him, slower than usual. The dog's body was tense, tail low. He remembered. Inside, the facility smelled like rust and mold. Paper was still scattered across the floor, frozen into place. Maya's boots crunched over glass as she led the way into the heart of the building. Then she saw it. A locked vault, its steel frame warped by time but still standing. They broke it open with a hydraulic cutter Enzo had sent. Inside were rows of file boxes, tapes, drives, video footage, live testing records, biometrics, military contracts, government signatures, proof. Maya fell to her knees, overwhelmed. Jordan placed a hand on her shoulder. This is how we finish it. Outside, thunder rumbled not from the sky, but from engines approaching. Enzo's voice crackled through the radio. They're coming. You've got less than 5 minutes. Maya stuffed everything she could into her bag. We get this to the world, she said. No matter what. Jordan nodded. We split up. Draw them out. Cerberus growled, standing between them. Maya touched his head. You stay with Eli. Protect him. That's your mission now. He whined, nudged her hand, but obeyed. As the enemy closed in, Maya turned to Jordan, fire in her voice. They buried the truth. Now we burn the lie. Peter's opination. They ran into the night, and behind them, the mountain held its breath. The sound of boots crunching snow echoed like gunshots through the night. Maya ran without looking back. The flash drive pressed tightly against her chest, her breath sharp in the cold. Each inhale burned her lungs, but she didn't slow down. She couldn't. Behind her, Jordan moved like a ghost, his training taking over. They didn't speak. No need. The plan was set. Divide, distract, and survive long enough to get the evidence out. From her earpiece, Enzo's voice was taut. You've got 3 on your tail. 1 has infrared. Maya veered left, diving down a slope into thicker pine cover. She rolled, scrambled up, and kept running. How far to the extraction? 4 miles. North Ridge. I'll get there. Be careful. They're not looking to capture. She already knew that. At a clearing, Maya crouched, pulled her sidearm, and took a steadying breath. Then she dropped to her stomach and crawled beneath a fallen log, snow coating her jacket. Her pulse thudded in her ears. The men passed her. Too focused, too loud. Military, but not official. Black Ops. Silent patches. No insignias. She waited. 30 seconds. Then she ran the opposite way, circling back toward the ridge. Elsewhere in the forest, Jordan found higher ground. He crouched beside a boulder, unslinging a small drone from his pack. With quick fingers, he launched it into the air, feeding it coordinates from Enzo's map overlay. The drone buzzed low, its infrared picking up 7 distinct heat signatures. 4 were hunting Maya. 3 were heading toward the bunker, toward Eli. Jordan swore under his breath. He tapped the mic. Marco, we've got company heading your way. Marco's voice came back calm. Copy. I've moved Eli and the dog to the ravine shelter. You're alone? Never stopped me before. Jordan cursed again. Hold tight. I'm redirecting. He sent the drone to track Maya, then moved down the slope, every muscle screaming against the cold. His shoulder ached, the old wound flaring under pressure, but he kept going, because if they got to that kid, this would all be for nothing. Back at the temporary ravine shelter, Marco stood at the door, rifle in hand, eyes scanning the dark. Eli sat behind a crate, arms wrapped around Cerberus, who was growling low, ears pinned back. You're okay, Marco said over his shoulder. Just like we practiced. But Maya, she's tougher than all of us, trust me. Then a branch snapped. Marco raised his weapon. From the trees emerged a figure, tall, moving fast. Marco didn't fire. Jordan? 3 minutes out. Jordan panted, waving him off. They're close. Extraction's coming in. 2 clicks. Airdrop. We move now. Vienna. Marco tossed Eli a jacket. Let's go, soldier. Eli climbed onto Cerberus's back like they'd practiced, gripping his collar. Cerberus took off at a controlled pace, leading them toward the high trail. The adults followed behind, weapons raised, nerves on fire. But even as they ran, Jordan knew it wasn't over. Maya reached the top of the ridge, just as the extraction chopper appeared in the distance, a dark blur against the breaking dawn. She tapped her mic. I see it. 2-1. Then a gunshot cracked the air. She dropped to the ground, snow exploding beside her. Sniper! She hissed. She crawled toward cover, heart racing. Marco, where are you? Closing in on the ridge. Hold tight. More gunfire. One bullet grazed her thigh. She bit down a cry, clutching the wound, crawling forward. Then through the haze, Cerberus appeared. He bounded through the trees, lunging at the sniper's position. A scream followed. Gunfire. Silence. Cerberus returned, blood on his coat. Maya smiled through the pain. "You just saved me again, didn't you?" Eli ran to her, tears in his eyes. "You're bleeding." "I'm okay, sweetie. Just a scratch." Jordan and Marco arrived seconds later. The chopper landed hard on the clearing, snow billowing around it. "Go!" Marco shouted. Jordan helped Maya aboard, followed by Eli and Cerberus. Marco fired 3 more shots into the trees before leaping inside. The door slammed shut, the helicopter rose, and the mountains shrank beneath them. Back in Manhattan, 48 hours later, the footage from Site Indigo aired on every major network. The story hit like an earthquake. Classified experiments, government complicity, the abuse of military animals, whistleblowers, survivors, Maya's testimony, Jordan's face, Cerberus at her side. The country watched, wept, raged. An emergency hearing was scheduled. A full investigation launched. Gavron's name trended globally for all the wrong reasons. But the war wasn't over yet. As Maya stood on the balcony of Enzo's penthouse, overlooking the city, she knew this wasn't just a victory. It was a beginning. Jordan stepped beside her. "You ready for what comes next?" She nodded. "We told the truth. That's enough." Cerberus came up behind them, nudging both gently. Eli ran out to join them, holding a newspaper. "We're on the front page," he beamed. "Cerberus looks like a hero. What is lured?" Maya smiled, resting a hand on the dog's head. "He is a hero," Jordan added. "So are you." The wind shifted, carrying the smell of rain, and as the first drops fell over New York, Maya felt something deep in her chest, something like peace. Not perfect, but earned. 3 days after the broadcast, the world had changed, at least their world had. Inside a quiet office in Midtown Manhattan, Maya sat across from a panel of congressional investigators. Their suits were sharp, their questions sharper. Cameras weren't allowed in this room. Only the truth. Jordan sat beside her, composed, stoic. His military bearing hadn't left him, even after all these years in the shadows. Cerberus lay at Maya's feet, a silent witness. "We've reviewed the footage," said the lead investigator, a woman in her 50s with graying hair and a steady gaze. "We've interviewed the whistleblowers, including the ex-staff of Site Indigo. What you brought forward is damning. You've risked everything." Maya nodded. "We didn't do this for credit." "No," Jordan added. "We did it because no one else would." The woman leaned back in her chair. "This committee will recommend full prosecution of those involved in Project Midas, as well as reparations for victims, both human and animal." Maya breathed, for the first time in days, just a little easier. "And what about Gavron?" she asked. The investigator exchanged a look with her colleague. "He's gone off-grid. Interpol has issued a warrant. We're working with multiple governments," Jordan muttered under his breath. "He won't be found unless he wants to be." "But he will slip," Maya said. "Men like him always do." The woman gave a rare smile. "I hope you're right." As they stood to leave, one of the younger staffers leaned forward. "Miss Williams, if I may, why did you stay in it this long? After all you endured, you could have walked away." Maya didn't hesitate. "Because someone had to tell the truth. And the truth doesn't shout, it waits. It waits for someone to listen." Outside, the city pulsed with life. Horns, chatter, and a sense of tension easing. The trio, Maya, Jordan, and Cerberus, walked down the courthouse steps, greeted not by paparazzi, but by silence, a different kind of respect. Eli was waiting in a black SUV with Marco. He jumped out, holding up a flyer. "They want you to speak at the National Summit on Military Ethics." Maya blinked. "What?" "It's in D.C. next month, you and Jordan. They want you both on stage. You're heroes now." Maya exchanged a glance with Jordan, who raised an eyebrow. "We don't do speeches," he said. But Eli grinned. "Maybe it's time you did." That night, back at Enzo's penthouse, the city glittered beneath the floor-to-ceiling windows. It was one of the few places that still felt untouched, clean, safe. Eli curled up with Cerberus on the oversized couch, fast asleep beneath a wool blanket. Maya stood in the kitchen, staring into a cup of tea gone cold. Jordan leaned on the counter beside her. "I can't stop thinking about the others," she said. "The dogs still out there. The handlers who didn't make it. The files we didn't find." "You can't save everyone," Jordan said quietly. "But I can keep going. Start something new. Real rehab, real rescue. Not just for animals. For vets too." Jordan nodded. "You build it. I'll help you run it." Maya smiled. "You? I'm not good at staying still." "I noticed." He chuckled. It was a low sound, honest. "I was wrong about you," he said after a pause. "Back at the beginning, you were angry," she replied. "I was broken." They both looked toward the couch, where Cerberus shifted slightly in his sleep. "He fixed us both," Maya whispered. Jordan nodded. "Yeah, he did." The next morning, the foundation paperwork was filed. The Thorne Williams Center for Canine Rehabilitation and Veteran Recovery. Enzo wrote the first check. Marco organized security. And a retired military engineer donated a 40-acre property in upstate New York. Construction began within weeks. Maya oversaw every detail from the kennel layout to the on-site therapy rooms. Jordan handled training protocols and security. Eli helped name every dog that arrived. And Cerberus, he became the symbol of the whole mission, a Pitbull who once carried the scars of war, now wearing the vest of a certified therapy dog. Veterans came, so did wounded dogs, and for once, they were both given a place to heal together. At the grand opening, a small crowd gathered. No press. Just soldiers, survivors, families. Maya stood in front of the new sign, her voice calm but clear. "We built this for those who were used and discarded, for those told they were dangerous or broken. You are not. You are human, or canine, and you matter." She paused, emotion in her throat. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like peace. Sometimes, like a wagging tail. Jordan stepped up beside her and said nothing. He just placed his hand on her shoulder, and that said everything. The ribbon was cut. Cerberus barked once, and the healing began. That night, Maya sat on the porch of the center, wrapped in an old quilt, a cup of tea warming her hands this time. The stars above the forest were brighter than in the city. The air cleaner. She heard the door open behind her. Jordan stepped out, 2 mugs in hand. "Hot cocoa," he said. "Doctor's orders." She accepted the cup. "I didn't know you could make this." "I can't." Marco did. They sat in silence, the kind that didn't need to be filled. "I keep waiting for something to go wrong," Maya said. Jordan nodded. "That's the cost of survival. You don't believe in peace until it stops surprising you. It is not every. But this place, it feels like hope." "It is." She looked at him. "You think Cerberus will ever forget?" "No," Jordan said. "But I think he's finally okay remembering." Cerberus padded out, nuzzled Maya's knee, then laid at their feet. As the stars stretched above, Maya finally let herself rest. Not because the fight was over, but because, for once, the truth had won. It was nearly midnight when the call came. The ranch was quiet. All the dogs had been fed, the lights dimmed, Eli tucked into bed with a flashlight and a worn comic book. Cerberus patrolled the grounds out of habit, more guardian than pet. Maya answered on the second ring. Enzo's voice was low, grave. He's surfaced. Her breath caught. "Gavrin?" "Yes." "Argentina. Private airstrip. We tracked an encrypted message routed through 3 shell companies. He's trying to sell what's left of the Project Midas files." Maya stood from the kitchen table, tea forgotten. "To who? We don't know. But they're paying in crypto, and they want physical drives. This isn't politics. This is black market." Jordan, who had been dozing in the armchair, opened one eye. "What's going on?" Maya covered the receiver. "Gavrin. Enzo found him." Jordan sat upright. "Where?" She held the phone back to her ear. "When?" 3 days, Enzo said. "Remote villa outside Bariloche. I've arranged to contact someone local. Former intelligence. He can get you close. You want us to go?" Enzo didn't answer immediately. "I want you to end it." The next morning, Jordan sharpened his knife with silent precision. Maya packed a small duffel. No cameras, No files, just tools. This wasn't about exposure anymore. This was personal. Eli sensed it before anyone said a word. "You're leaving again," he said, standing in the kitchen doorway. Maya knelt. "Just for a few days. There's something unfinished." "Another. Is it him?" Eli's voice lowered. "The bad man?" "Yes." "Then go." She paused. "You're not scared?" "I was, before I met Cerberus." The dog stood beside him now, head tilted, eyes steady. "Will you stay with him?" Maya asked. Eli nodded. "Always." Argentina was colder than Maya expected. Snow capped the peaks outside Bariloche. The air thin, pine-scented. Their contact, a woman named Camila, met them at a roadside inn. "Gavron's bunker isn't on any satellite," she said, unrolling a topographical map. "He built into a hillside. Former Nazi escape route. Believe it or not," Jordan snorted. "How poetic. He's got 2 guards, maybe 3. But the tech, cameras, sensors, you'll need to be ghosts." Maya traced the route with her finger. "We've done worse." That night, they camped half a mile from the target. No fire, no light, just silence. Jordan stared into the dark, fingers twitching. "You ever think we're just chasing shadows?" Maya didn't answer immediately. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But this one has teeth. And he doesn't get to disappear while the rest of us live with the damage." He nodded. "Tomorrow, we close the door." At 3:12 a.m., they moved. Camila had scrambled the outer sensors for 20 minutes, just enough time to slip in. Jordan took point. Maya covered the rear. The hillside was steep, slick with moss and frost. The entrance was hidden behind a false stone slab, just as Camila had said. Jordan lifted the slab. Maya slipped inside. A narrow tunnel, concrete, humid. The walls sweated with the cold. Then voices. They froze. Gavron's voice echoed from a room up ahead. This is gold. Do you understand? Real war weapons. Minds wiped. Obedience trained through trauma. You want a regime change? You start with loyalty." Maya's stomach turned. A second voice accented, calculating. "And the files?" "Gavron. In my hand. No cloud. No leaks." Jordan tapped Maya's shoulder. "Let's move." They crept forward. Through the half-open door, they saw him. Gavron, thinner now. Gray at the temples, but smug, arrogant. He waved a flash drive like a trophy. "I built gods," he said. That was the last sentence he'd speak for a while. Jordan stepped into the light, gun raised. "Built monsters, you mean?" Gavron turned shocked. "You?" "All. Me." Maya entered behind him. "No camera crews this time," Gavron sneered. "Just revenge?" Jordan's hand didn't tremble. "No, just justice." The buyer reached for a weapon, but Maya already had hers drawn. "Don't," she said coldly. The man froze. Gavron laughed. "You don't have the authority." "Maybe not," Maya interrupted. "But we've got the truth. And we've got enough eyes on us now that if anything happens in this room, you become the face of a government scandal in 6 languages." She stepped forward. "You trained a dog to kill and a man to forget. You failed at both." Gavron's eyes darkened. "You think you won?" Maya leaned close. "I know we did." She snatched the drive from his hand. Camila's voice buzzed in their earpiece. "Extraction point ready. Now or never." Jordan looked at Gavron. "Next time you try to disappear, pick a place without a trail." They left him there powerless, exposed, and most terrifying of all, forgotten. Back in New York, Eli was waiting on the porch when the car pulled up. He ran straight into Maya's arms, burying his face in her jacket. "You're back," he whispered. "We're home," she said. Cerberus barked once, then trotted to Jordan, tail wagging like it had all those months ago in a quiet mansion hallway. The sun rose slowly behind them. The air still held winter's chill, but Maya didn't feel it. For the first time in a long time, the ghosts had stopped chasing. They'd been seen, named, and now, finally laid to rest. Spring arrived late that year. At the Thorne Williams Center, the snow melted slowly, revealing patches of green earth and stubborn daffodils pushing through the thaw. The old oak tree at the edge of the training yard bloomed last, its gnarled limbs stretching wide like an elder waking from a long slumber. Underneath it, Maya sat on a bench with Cerberus at her feet, a warm breeze teasing the hem of her cardigan. She stared at a stack of letters in her lap, some from supporters, others from survivors, all addressed to the woman who spoke. Jordan approached from the kennels, wiping his hands on a rag. "Mail call again? Third bag this week," she said, lifting a brow. "Some folks want to donate. Others just want to say, thank you." He sank beside her on the bench. "Funny, isn't it? All those years in the dark, and now we're out here with letters and lemonade like retired folk." Maya smiled. "I'll take letters over muzzle flashes." Jordan nodded, then looked toward the horizon. "You sleep last night?" She hesitated. "Getting better," she said finally. "The dreams are softer, less screaming, more silence." Cerberus stirred, then rested his head on her boot like he understood. Jordan handed her a small envelope. "This one came by hand. Marco says a courier dropped it off. No return address." Maya opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Typed, crisp. "The world forgets, but I don't. Tell the dog he still remembers wrong." No name, no signature. Her hands stiffened. "It's him." Jordan read over her shoulder. His jaw tightened. "He's trying to get in your head." "Too late," she whispered. "He was never really out." Jordan took the note and calmly tore it in half. If he wanted to strike, he would've. "That's a warning." An echo. Nothing more. Maya exhaled through her nose. Even shadows cast long in spring, denum, but they fade all the same. Later that day, the center held a small ceremony under the oak. They were welcoming 4 new veteran canine pairs into the rehabilitation program. The media was absent by design. Just families, staff, and the newest members of a growing tribe. Eli held the leash of a young German shepherd named Bunker, whose tail wagged like it had a metronome inside it. "This is Officer Hicks," Eli told the dog proudly, motioning to the man beside him. "He's going to take care of you now." Hicks, a quiet former infantryman, smiled for the first time since his arrival. Maya watched the exchange with a lump in her throat. This was why they kept fighting. As the sun began to dip below the hills, the group gathered around the fire pit. There was cornbread, chili, and stories. Honest ones, painful ones, hopeful ones. Maya stood to speak. "When we built this place," she said, her voice firm, "we didn't know if anyone would come. We just knew we had to make room for pain, for truth, for healing." She looked around the circle. "Tonight, you are not patience. You are not broken. You are home." Applause, quiet, heartfelt. As the fire crackled, Jordan leaned close. "You've become quite the orator." "I've had practice," he smirked. "Should we tell them about the time you threatened to throw chili at that senator?" She narrowed her eyes. "He said pitbulls were dangerous." Jordan laughed. "Fair point." 20 duetted. That night, Maya found herself beneath the oak again. Alone this time. The sky was full of stars, the kind you could only see out here. Far from the noise, she sat in the grass, legs crossed, Cerberus beside her. "I got your message, Gavrin," she said aloud to the darkness. "And you're right. The dog does remember. But so do I." Cerberus let out a low huff, as if in agreement. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small brass tag, the one Cerberus wore during Project Midas, the one Jordan found years later, buried under ash and shame. She buried it now beneath the oak, a grave marker for the past. "Goodbye," she whispered. A breeze moved through the leaves, soft and warm. Then footsteps. Jordan appeared behind her, 2 cups in hand. "I figured you might need something." "Cocoa?" "Strong stuff, with marshmallows." She accepted the cup, sipping slowly. He sat beside her. "No dreams tonight," she said. "Just quiet." He nodded. "That's how you know the ghosts are done speaking." Maya leaned her head against his shoulder, and for the first time in a long, long time, she believed him. The world didn't end with a bang or a confession. It changed quietly. At 6:12 Maya stepped barefoot onto the porch of the Thorne Williams Center, wrapped in her faded flannel robe. a coffee mug warming her hands. Fog clung low over the field, veiling the trees in silence. She heard the wind first, then the soft padding of Cerberus beside her, nudging open the screen door with his nose like always. "You never miss a morning, do you?" she murmured. The dog sat, gaze fixed on the field. It wasn't the same place it had been a year ago. The scars were still there, both in the land and in them, but they'd grown something from the wreckage. The garden was blooming. The center now had 3 full-time staff, 10 resident veterans in recovery, and a waiting list stretching into next year. Jordan was already in the yard, stretching beneath the oak tree. His back had healed. So had his mind, bit by bit. He spoke more now, laughed more. He still slept with one eye open, but not out of fear, out of habit, and maybe, in some way, out of love. Maya took a sip of coffee and called out, "You're up early." He grinned. "Old bones, cold mornings. Can't afford to sleep in." "I don't know," she teased. "You looked pretty cozy at 5:30. He walked over, leaning on the porch rail. "We've got a new pair arriving today. Combat medic and a retired detection hound. I'll make the welcome kits. And I'll start the intake forms." They didn't need to say more. Later that morning, the newest arrival pulled up in a dusty blue pickup, a duffel bag tossed in the back. A woman in her 40s stepped out, moving slowly but with determination. Her left arm bore the unmistakable scars of war burns, shrapnel, but her posture was upright, not defeated. A yellow lab hopped down after her, tail wagging as if this was just another day in paradise. Maya met her halfway down the path. "You must be Casey," she said, extending a hand. "I've been called worse," the woman replied, shaking it with a firm grip. "This is Radar. He's the only reason I got out of Kabul alive." Maya knelt to greet the dog, who licked her cheek in approval. "I think he'll like it here." Casey glanced at the fields, the kennels, the trees. "I already do." Jordan stepped forward. "Welcome to the team." Cerberus barked once in greeting. Radar barked back. And just like that, a new chapter began. That evening, Maya sat by the fire pit with Jordan, a worn journal in her lap. She'd been writing again, not just reports and therapy logs, but pages from her past. She wasn't sure if it was a memoir or just memories. But they mattered. Jordan read over her shoulder. "That the story about the restaurant?" "Yeah," she said. "The one with the booth that always squeaked. I hated that booth. You always picked it. I was testing your patience." She elbowed him lightly. "You almost failed." They laughed. Eli ran past them, chasing a frisbee with Cerberus in hot pursuit. Marco sat on a bench nearby, teaching 2 young men how to disassemble and clean gear. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in soft orange. Jordan looked around. "You know what this is? A miracle? A second chance?" She nodded. "One I never thought I'd get." "Neither did I." They fell quiet. The fire crackled. Then Maya said, "You think he'll ever try again? Gavrin?" "Yeah." Jordan's gaze darkened for a moment, but it passed. "He might. But now he knows we won't run. He knows we've got more than evidence. We've got people, a place, a purpose, and the truth." Jordan smiled. "Exactly, Ed." As night deepened, Maya walked out to the tree line where the dogs were kennelled for the evening. Cerberus followed, his steps slower these days, but still purposeful. She crouched beside him. "Hey, old boy," she whispered. "We did it, didn't we?" Cerberus leaned against her, silent. "You saved us." Again and again, her fingers traced the edge of his collar. "I don't know how much longer we have," she said, voice thickening. "But I want you to know you're more than a hero. Your family." He blinked slowly, then rested his head on her lap. She stayed there for a long time, just the 2 of them, the silence, the stars. A whole life carved out of pain and rebuilt into something unbreakable. 1 year later, the Thorne Williams Center celebrated its first full anniversary. 17 dogs, 24 veterans, 3 reunions, 5 rescues, no deaths, no suicides, no returns to the shadows. Maya stood beneath the oak tree once more, reading aloud the names of every dog and every soldier who had passed through their gates. She read them slowly, clearly, like they mattered, because they did. When she finished, The crowd applauded, and in the front row, Cerberus sat tall, wearing a medal on his chest, a simple ribbon with a brass paw print. It wasn't from the government. It was from Eli. Handmade, earned. Later that night, Eli asked Maya if the story was over. She thought about it, then shook her head. No, she said. It's just finally quiet. But what if it gets loud again? He asked. Maya pulled him close, smiling as Cerberus curled up beside them. Then we speak louder. The boy nodded, satisfied, and as the fire burned low and the stars blinked into the velvet sky, the ranch slept. Not because there were no more battles, but because, at last, there was peace between them, there was hope in front of them, and behind them, only truth. The story of Maya, Cerberus, and the Thorne Williams Center teaches us that healing is possible even after betrayal, trauma, and injustice. It reminds us that true strength lies not in how loud we fight, but in how quietly we persist. Justice is not always served in courtrooms. Sometimes, it's found in quiet acts of loyalty, in rebuilding what was broken, and in giving others a second chance. Above all, this story honors the power of compassion between a soldier and a dog, a survivor and a child, and a community that dares to believe in redemption.